What's going on, everybody? My name is Aiden and welcome back to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a little bit of breaking news in relation to one of our players from obviously playing in the Eurobasket. Unfortunately, his team did not necessarily go, I guess, all the way through and progress through the tournament. Nevertheless, it looks like this player has called it a career in terms of the international stage, and he's retiring from the Euro, the Euro Leagues, Eurobasket, international play, and all that sorts. With that being said, I want to talk about his performance in this tournament, and I also want to talk about what this could mean for future seasons in the NBA. Let's talk about Nikola Vucevic, ladies and gentlemen, the starting center for the Chicago Bulls. So let's talk about him in this video. Before we get any further, if you like the video and you want to see more from me, drop a like, drop a follow, and or subscribe if you are new, and let me know what you guys think about Nikola Vucevic and the journey he has had in the international scene. Ultimately, he played for a team that doesn't necessarily do well in terms of these tournaments, but is always the shining light amongst that team. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, Nikola Vucevic played for Montenegro in this Eurobasket, and unfortunately, they didn't really get far. And because of that, they're obviously eliminated. They don't have another game to play. Vucevic has called it a career in that regard. He has called it a retirement, let's say. First and foremost, I want to wish Nikola Vucevic nothing but the best. I mean, put it this way, when we kind of get bored of the NBA sense and the Eurobasket takes place and we get to see how players are doing alongside of that, Vucevic is always a guy that puts up amazing stats. He's always a guy that's a player to watch in these sort of tournaments, and this season was nothing different. I want to tell you the averages he had, ladies and gentlemen, in this Eurobasket that just took place. He averaged 20.8 points, which is ninth amongst all players in that tournament, 11.6 rebounds, and 4.4 assists in that tournament. So everything ran through him. Playmaking wise, it all ran through him. He dominated the glass as he usually does, and he puts up 20 points per game, which we know he could do on any given night. He was the main option on that team. Unfortunately, when it comes to tournaments like this, it needs to be a team built around him, essentially. Like, he can't just be the only guy. I'm not saying he was, but he didn't have the best teammates around him. If you look at other teams out there in that competition, there are plenty of teams that are very much more well-rounded. So Vucevic did get eliminated, but he looked great, ladies and gentlemen. He looked really, really good. First and foremost, he looked really slimmed down. I don't necessarily know if that's going to translate over to the NBA, but Vucevic has always been a guy that tends to look a little bit more fitter during the off-season. He always looks a little bit slimmed down, a little bit more mobile, but once the season really kicks on, I don't necessarily think I could say he goes back to normal, but what I will say is, it's a long season, and especially for a player of Nikola Vucevic's stature as a 7-foot big man, also someone that's a little bit older in age, when he starts the season very quickly, very mobile, towards the end of the season, it may not always be the case. It may not always be the quickest, may not be the most mobile towards the end. That's the grueling part of an 82-game season, and Vucevic tends to play a lot more games than he misses. So, yes, he did look slimmed down. Whether that translated over to the NBA or not, I'm not sure. He looked dominant in the post, which is expected. Again, he's playing a couple of teams out there that don't really have elite big men, so this is what he should be doing. This is what we want to see him do on the Bulls more often than not as well, is to dominate the post. Now, thankfully, more times than not, there was a season, I think it was 2 years ago, he averaged the most post hooks in the league. So it goes to show that he was putting a focus on that sort of circumstance, but I think last season, he did make up for it with the three-point shooting. He was very efficient from behind the arc last season, so it did take away from that post game, but at the same time, if you're making the threes, it's not going to be a conversation of discussion more times than not as well. I think this won't really translate to the NBA because Vucevic is Nikola Vucevic. He's going to play the way that he plays. I don't think there's going to be massive transformations from that standpoint. But ultimately, if he's knocking down threes and he's playing the right way, there's not really too much else to complain about, ladies and gentlemen. But what does this mean for the future seasons? Well, essentially, whether it's for the Bulls or not, this will give Vucevic more of a chance to rest during these off seasons. You do tend to see this with a lot of big players from the NBA and even multiple other sports. When they get a little bit older, they need to start prioritizing which competitions are important. Sure, in your mid-20s and your early 20s, you can kind of do whatever you like. You can play all these competitions and you're not going to feel tired. You're not going to feel exhausted. Your joints aren't going to hurt. But once you get to you know, the 30s, and especially Vucevic, I think he's 34 years old now. He's getting to the point where he needs to prioritize. He can't play every tournament. He can't pick and you know, he can't play every tournament, so he has to pick and choose. He has to kind of I guess mentally within himself decide which one is more important. And I think he just decided, well, the NBA is probably the more important competition to be a part of, and it's the longer season. It's basically his full-time job in a sense. He's prioritizing the NBA over the international scene at the moment, which is completely fine. Most players do the same. And yeah, I just think it's come down to that moment for Nikola Vucevic. And it will come down to that with a lot of players as well. They will have to pick and choose. They will not be able to do both for the entirety of their career. Unless you're LeBron. LeBron can kind of, I mean, he did play for Team USA not too long ago, but for the most part, it's very rare. And he's kind of picked his choice there. So he's going to come into NBA seasons more well-rested. He'll probably come into NBA seasons with better starts because he has that rest on his side and he's not coming off of a big competition. Or it could easily get to the point where maybe he doesn't have the best starts because when you're playing in the Eurobasket, for example, you have a little bit of a head start compared to everybody else that isn't. And that could be a benefit as well. But yeah, it really just depends on Nikola Vucevic. All in all, I don't want to drag this out any further. 6 minutes is more than enough to talk about this situation. Congratulations on your retirement, Nikola Vucevic. You played really, really well. You made your country proud. You made your teammates proud. And ultimately, I think you made the NBA proud as well. Go and enjoy that international retirement and focus on what's to come next season for the Chicago Bulls and for future NBA seasons as well. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay tuned for more. Take care. And peace.